Hi, and welcome to Berry Aftercare. I am Connie Stapleton, licensed psychologist who has worked in the field of bariatric medicine for 17 years. Time is flying, my friends, and I have a question for you today. I want you to ask yourself this question, actually, and the question is, are you a person who has overall psychological strength and stability? Dun, dun, dun. Well, what the heck does that even mean? And why is it important? Why am I talking to you about this today? Well, it's important if you want to be a person who is one of those who does better when it comes to maintaining weight loss over time. And hopefully that pertains to everyone who has ever had weight loss surgery. Remember, I always talk about the goal is not just to lose weight. The goal is to lose weight and keep that weight off. So if you've had or are thinking about having weight loss surgery, then you need to keep in mind to restate and reformulate your goals to yourself and anytime you share it out loud. It's not, I want to lose weight. It's, I want to get this weight off and I will keep this weight off. That is the long term picture. So, in the past several episodes, I've been talking about a research article from a group of researchers who has identified a list of qualities, characteristics, that have been shown to be common among people who do better maintaining that weight loss. So, as always, if you're listening on the podcast, I will put the show notes up on the podcast and I will include the link to that article. I'm also going to include another link today from an article I found online. And we're going to talk about what is this business of overall psychological strength and stability. And what does that look like in a person? What does a person who has, pretty good strength, psychological strength, a lot of stability, what do they look like? Is this person psychologically minded, as I like to say? Well, let's talk about what that means. And you can ask yourself and figure out for yourself if that's something you have. And if it's not something you have, just like all of these other things we've discussed, then you need to find ways to improve that. And there are many, many ways to do that. And as a matter of fact, we all need to continually work on our psychological strength and our overall stability. I mean, life is an ongoing process. We live, hopefully, we learn from mistakes. And as we learn, to deal with life in healthier ways, then we improve our overall psychological strength. We improve our overall stability. And it's a process, it's a lifelong process. But let's get into the meat of today's topic. So, I wasn't sure what the researchers in this article I've been referencing for the last many weeks had in mind when they talked about overall psychological strength and stability. So, I was reading the article in more well, I read the entire article, but when it came to the part about overall strength and stability, I'm going to share with you what they had to say about this. And then I'm going to share with you a list of psychological traits that other researchers, several other researchers, have come to understand as describing someone who is psychologically healthy. So, the initial researchers that came up with this whole list of who succeeds in maintaining weight loss, they talked about psychological strength and stability in the following ways. So, here's what they had to say. They said the balance, how well balanced you are, the stability and maturity of the person appear to be important for the outcomes. They said a consistent pattern emerges where the person likely to succeed in maintaining a lower body weight has a personality functioning with more strengths and stability. Da 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 says nothing, right? But the strengths they said include a capacity for control. Hmm. And also the ability to handle relapses in a balanced way and to recover again. The thinking style inherent in flexible control implies greater maturity. So, what are they saying here? What is this psychobabble they're talking about? Well, what they're saying is that if a person falls off the wagon, right? If you blow your food plan for the day or you over exceed the amount of calories you plan to intake for the day, or if your sugar consumption is off the rails for a day, rather than saying, I blew it, I'm a failure, why do I even bother? Or saying things like, well, I'll start again next Monday, even if it's Tuesday, or falling off the wagon and having that all or nothing kind of attitude, like, all right, I already blew it, so why bother? And then you forget about the whole thing. Those would not be psychologically strong ways of handling what they're referring to as a relapse. So if you have a bad day or if you just completely blow it in an afternoon, a psychologically strong person says, "Well, that sucked. I can do better than that. In fact, for the rest of the day, I'm back on track. I'm going to follow through with the plan that I made, and I can't undo what I did, but what can I learn from that situation?" Ooh, all right. So you might want to look at your history, long time ago and more recent history, when it comes to things like blowing your diet or regaining some weight or just going off the rails over the holidays. How do you handle that? Do you just throw in the towel and give up? Or do you say, well, okay, that's over and done. I'm back on it. And these researchers are saying that people who have the capacity to jump back on their eating plan, their exercise plan, more sooner than later are the ones who are going to do better in the long run. So you might want to question yourself. And if you struggle to get back on track, to say, I'm starting over right this minute to try to figure out what can I learn from having blown it. If you're the person who can do that, you're likely to do better in the long haul. And if you struggle to do those things, then what this is saying is you need to learn these skills. It's not saying there's no hope for you. It's saying if this is an area where you struggle to get back on track quite quickly, then you need to learn some skills. Maybe you need to learn how other people are doing it. Ask some people, go to a support group, talk to your dietitian, maybe go to a therapist or try a health coach and ask them for skills. Because remember, most of us need to learn skills in order to do better in our lives. It's not that we're not capable, it's that maybe we haven't learned the skills or maybe we haven't had support in following through with the skills we've learned. So get some help to do that because you want to improve this overall psychological strength and stability. So, another thing that they talked about was having a capacity for control. Now, control can be a tricky word in the world of weight loss, especially if you're dealing with addiction, because in the 12-step programs, they teach you to let go of control, to quit trying to control this. But in a lot of weight loss programs, they talk about getting control over your food. You think about it how you want, but I think a better word might be the word influence or take charge of, because it's less heaped with emotional triggers for people. I feel so out of control, or I can't do this, or I just can't control things. And then you have the 12-step meaning of control and people telling you, let go of control. So let's talk about what can I take responsibility for? What things in my life can I influence? So can you influence and can you learn how to better manage a diet plan or an eating plan or what your food plan consists of? Why, yes, you can. You can learn to make a healthy food plan. And as a bariatric patient, you have to know yourself well enough to know, do I want a very simple, you know, sort of narrow range of foods that I eat. First of all, as a bariatric patient, you want to always eat protein first. Can you influence, can you choose whether or not you eat protein first? Well, of course you can. Now, if you're struggling to do that, then you absolutely need to get help with that because eating protein first is really not in and of itself that difficult. But if you're having struggles with that, then you need a food coach or a health coach, or you need a therapist, or you need to have regular visits with your dietitian to say, what are some great healthy sources of protein and what are some ways I can easily ingest that so I eat my protein first? That's really, really important. And you have all the influence over that that you need. If you're struggling to follow through with that, then get some help. So, this business of control, people feel like they lose control when they're feeling emotionally overwhelmed and they turn to food, or they feel out of control when there's too many foods to choose from. So if you want to feel like you have more influence, you can take charge of in better ways in situations that are difficult for you, then work with somebody who can help you make a plan. Because the realities of life are that you are going to have situations in where there is way too much food around, way too many unhealthy foods around. That's probably not going to change. You have a tremendous amount of influence over the foods you allow in your environment. We've talked about that. So, a psychologically healthy, strong person would take charge of their own environment, an environment where they are in charge of what goes into it. That includes your home, that includes your vehicle, that includes your immediate workspace, that includes what you take with you to some other place to have available to you. So, do you have the psychological strength to take charge of those areas over which you have a lot of influence? And again, if you're struggling with that, then the answer is get help in those areas. So, the thinking style, the authors also say the thinking style that goes along with having flexibility, having influence over your situation is a great sign of maturity. So if your thinking style is, you know what, I'm struggling with this, but I'll get help. You know what, I'm struggling with this, but there are sources of information where I can learn how to do this better. If you're, those are psychologically strong mindsets. A mindset that would indicate less maturity in this area would be like, well, I just don't know what to do. Well, this is the way I've always done this. There's just no hope for me. I don't know why I bother. Those kinds of negative thought styles are going to get you into trouble when it comes to maintaining your weight over the long haul. And I hate to say it, but those thinking styles, that negative Nelly, the downer, the beating up on yourself, the negative self talk, those are examples of a lack of psychological strength. And this is an area in which, in my field, I have seen a lot of problems because so many people consistently abuse themselves verbally and emotionally by the thoughts they use to describe themselves, by the things they say to themselves. And that, my friends, is not psychological strength. So if you're beating yourself up, if you have an automatic negative thought pattern, if you are one to kind of give in and give up hope fairly easily, then you need to work on developing some more stable psychological strength. And that's going to take a tremendous amount of effort. Now, the original article that we've been talking about, Who Succeeds in Maintaining Weight Loss, also talks about personality factors that contribute to somebody having the ability to find healthy coping strategies to use in all areas of their lives. As we've been talking about these gotta do 'ems, as I call them, for maintaining healthy weight, we've been talking about healthy coping skills because the ability to handle life stress. Remember, that was one of the topics of a recent video, of a recent podcast. And those kinds of attitudes, the willingness to seek out healthier coping skills. So many people who have weight loss surgery and struggle with carrying extra weight are emotional eaters. We've talked about that a lot in these videos. And emotional eaters need to find healthier coping skills. There are a lot of podcasts and videos that we've done previously that I would encourage you to go back to and re listen to, because this ability to develop healthier coping skills than turning to food to numb emotions, calm down, forget about what's going on in your life that you don't want to deal with, these are signs of psychological strength. Continuing to use food as an emotional crutch is not a sign of psychological strength. And so, as many people do struggle with this issue, it's an area where almost all of us can improve. And it's not just food, you know that. I'm not just picking on turning to food. I've had to learn all kinds of healthy coping skills in my life to deal directly with conflict. So many people don't want to deal with conflict. Well, if you want to increase your psychological strength, then you need to learn to deal with conflict, because conflict is a part of life. It's a part of every single relationship, practically. Any kind of long term relationship is going to have some conflict. And so, learning to deal with it is a very sound, strong psychological skill, rather than turning and running away, rather than denying conflict in relationships, rather than denying that you're an emotional eater, rather than denying that you lack some healthier coping skills. So, we need to have, as these researchers say, overall psychological strength and stability. And definitely, definitely, that applies to all adults. But because we're talking about maintaining healthy weight in this particular video and in this entire podcast, then we need to relate it to the issue at hand. Also, they say that people who are able to use creativity and have creative thinking about their situations are demonstrating greater psychological strength. And that's why I love listening to patients at support group meetings talk about, well, this is how I tried that. This is how I handled that. When I'm in this situation, this is what I've done. Have you tried that? Because there are so many creative ideas among various people. And not everything's going to work for the same person. One thing I know for sure about maintaining weight loss is you've got to do what works for you. And if you're unable to come up with newer ideas for emotional eating or for avoiding a fast food thing that calls your name or avoiding whatever your kryptonite food happens to be, then you can get different ideas from other people and you can share what has worked for you. Then you take all these ideas and you pick what works for yourself. But being creative, like, that didn't work for me. And I will tell you, the most creative response I have ever heard from a person was a guy who struggled to stay away from fast food. He would do the drive through, he would do the drive through. He didn't get out of his car and go in. He struggled with the drive through. So literally, he duct taped the driver's side window shut so that it would not roll down. And I thought that was very creative. I don't know if it's legal or safe, but it's a great example of using your creativity. It's like, if this is my struggle, what can I do? Because he knew he wasn't going to get out of the car and go in. He just knew that about himself. So it's like, what can I do with this? What kind of creative ways have you found to solve a food problem for you? Please share that on your support groups, on your social network pages, because people are looking for ideas. So having this creative thinking and being able to come up with your own solutions is a really good sign of psychological strength and having some stability. It's like, well, if that's not going to work, let's try plan B and C and D and all that. All right. You want to help develop, and we've talked about these strengths in prior episodes, but they also talk about autonomy and self sufficiency. The last podcast was about autonomy, meaning I'm making the decision for myself, and self sufficiency being I'm going to make sure it happens, come hell or high water. If somebody doesn't go to the gym class with me, I'm going to go by myself. If all of my walking buddies bail, I'm going walking by myself. If everybody says, they're going to support me and stay back and, not go to the buffet, but they all go, I'm sticking to my guns and I'm not giving in. So, autonomy, I'm making my own decisions in line with my own values, and I'm counting on myself to be able to follow through. This is another area where so many people struggle. You can have the idea, you can have the values, you can have your goals, and you can make up your mind that's what you're going to do. But sometimes that follow through is what we struggle with. And so you need to develop both internal and external sources of solid support to help you stay true to what you've decided that you're going to do for yourself. We're not going to do this by ourselves. I promise you that. In my own recovery and in every endeavor I've done in my adult life, I have had to have people to help me through it, to talk through the wisdom of my decisions that I'm thinking about making, to help me stay within my guardrails, to kind of give me a shove when I need it. Like, what are you thinking? This is not what you said you wanted to do. To call me on my crap. So, do you have both internal and external guardrails so that you can follow through with what you've decided to do? All right. So being able to try out these different solutions is a good sign of psychological strength. Instead of saying that wouldn't work for me, oh, I've tried that, that wouldn't work. But having a willingness to say, you know what, I'm going to give it another go. I'm going to see if there's something I can add to that maybe that will help me with my follow through. So it could be a variety of things. And having that open mindset, being willing. I always tell people this has nothing necessarily, well, it does, to do with the weight loss journey, but I always tell people when they're coming together in a relationship, it's not that there won't be problems because there will. There will always be problems in long-term relationships. What matters is both parties' willingness to look at the issues and try to work through it together. So when it comes to the weight loss journey, there will always be problems. You already know that. But one thing that can make a tremendous amount of difference, and this is about your psychological strength, is your willingness to try things other people suggest. Your willingness to try something that worked for you before, but you gave up on. Your willingness to push through a little more difficulty. Stick to, keep going forward with your effort. Could facilitate better success, right? Another thing that this initial article talks about is the ability to create and sustain a meal structure and change your food habits. Well, duh. Obviously, that needs to happen. And honestly, I know I hound on this, but it's so simple, which doesn't make it easy. It's simple because it's spelled out for bariatric patients. Eat 3 meals a day or eat every 3 to 4 hours and start with protein. That's pretty simple. It's not easy, but it's really spelled out for you. And you really want to focus in on that, following through with that process. So they also talk about the importance of self awareness. Am I willing to say I struggle with this? Am I willing to say I've been stubborn about that? Am I willing to say That's one of my strengths. Am I willing to say that's an area where I struggle? So, being honest with both your strengths and the areas in which you struggle is really, really important. And having enough self worth to say, I deserve this. You got to be able and willing to invest in yourself. All right. So, the last thing the original article talks about in terms of stability is, and psychological strength is, how stable is your life? Is it constantly in an uproar? There are a lot of us who struggle with substance issues, food being one of them, who create a lot of chaos in our lives. We may not know we're doing that, and we may be blaming other people for all the havoc that seems to be such a main part of our lives. And if we were really to dial in, we'd find out that we're creating a lot of this. Why? Because a lot of us come from backgrounds that are very chaotic, and we keep that going in our own lives. So if you have a consistently chaotic life, you might need to look at that, because that's not a sign of overall stability. You know, people change jobs a lot, but if you're changing jobs every other week, that's not very stable. If you are bouncing around from house to house or apartment to apartment, frequently, people do move, but is it an instability thing? If you're in the military and you're moving, that's not an instability thing caused by you. But if you just move all the time and create chaos, if you're with different partners every other week, are you making your life chaotic? Or have you learned what a lot of us learn, which is the more stable my life is, or the more boring my life is, the happier I am? Sometimes we figure that out in life. And I don't mean boring like not doing anything fun, I just mean less chaotic. I love this sentence in this article, Who Succeeds in Maintaining Weight Loss. Listen carefully to it. The sentence is, some patients may, however, need treatment interventions targeting other areas of their life before they have a chance to be successful in a standard weight loss program. That means sometimes there are other issues that need to be addressed in order for you to stand a chance at being successful after weight loss surgery. They're not talking about weight loss surgery, but I am. And let me tell you that as a person who conducts at least 20 pre surgical evaluations a week, I know that in many, many, many instances, there are other issues that need to be addressed in a person's life just because they're human. But for most of those people, they can address these issues and still have the weight loss surgery. It's like, what I'll say is, you need to have this surgery. It'll be good for you. But what I would suggest that you do is look at this area or this area or this area, or learn some coping skills for that emotional eating you struggle with. But it's not enough to stop them from having surgery. But sometimes there are issues that, from an external perspective, with a lot of experience personally and professionally, I go, you know what? This needs to be addressed, because I really believe it's going to hinder you in maintaining that weight loss. And when you look at the people that you know who have had weight loss surgery, and you see the percentage of people who struggle with regain, and it's a pretty high percentage, right? Much more than you'd want it to be, then you know that there are other issues related to their eating habits, their ability to find solutions, their willingness to seek solutions, or whatever it may be. I can't know for sure, but I do know that there are some other things that need to be addressed. And it may be these issues that we've been discussing in this last series of podcasts and um, bariatric care videos from this article that tell you what these researchers found in terms of who does succeed in maintaining weight loss. So I'm going to finish up this topic during the next video later this week, but I'm going to give you a little precursor to what we're going to be talking about. I do a lot of reading about what traits define a psychologically healthy adult. And in the class that I do, the Gain While You Lose class, which is an online 10-week class that digs pretty deep into some of these psychological issues, we spend 3 or 4 weeks talking about what a psychologically healthy adult looks like and how they behave and how they handle situations that include wanting to turn to food when you're feeling emotionally overwhelmed, or not sticking to the food plan that you had, or giving in, or negatively talking to yourself and beating yourself up. We talk about how healthy adults handle life situations and give tips on how to become more of this healthy, psychologically healthy adult. So I'm going to read to you just a few traits that several researchers over the years have found to describe a psychologically healthy adult. Keep in mind, these are the things that help when it comes to maintaining weight loss over the long haul. So, psychologically healthy adults tend to be open to feelings. Whoa, this is a big, big red flag when it comes to the patients that I have worked with in the last 17 years. And it was a huge red flag for me when I entered treatment for my own issues many, 30 years ago, over 30 years ago, because feelings are the thing that I didn't want to deal with. I didn't want to know about them. I didn't want to feel them. I didn't want to have anything to do with feelings. And so I drank. I took pain medication. I starved myself. I used food, all of these things so I wouldn't have to feel. And that is one of the biggest issues I have encountered in the patients I've worked with in the bariatric field over the last 17 years. We don't want to be open to feelings. We don't want to feel. So check this out. People who are psychologically healthy are the ones that are better at maintaining weight loss. And that means being open to feelings. We got a problem right there. So if you struggle with emotions and being open to knowing what they are, how they feel in your body, and working through them, something you might want to be working on, because that was the number one trait on this list of psychologically healthy adults. Dun, dun, dun. Warmth, being approachable, having a sense of kindness about you. Are you a warm person? A lot of the patients that I work with are very, very warm people, so I'm not thinking that's going to be too much of a problem. Positive emotions. Now, here's something that I have found in this patient population, and that includes myself, because I've long struggled with food and weight and body image and all that stuff, in addition to my other substances that I struggled with. Positive emotions, right? Now, you may put on a front, and I put on a good front for people, because a lot of the times we want to be included and we want to feel liked and we want people to, you know, we all want to be liked. So sometimes, regardless of how we're feeling on the inside, we put on this happy, cheerful, always, go lucky, happy go lucky kind of person with all the energy in the world. But on the inside, we're like grumpy, and we're going, oh, we're calling people names inside of our head, or we're comparing ourselves to other people. And we're definitely beating up on ourselves. So I'm going to ask you to really get honest with your heart of hearts. Do you carry around more positive emotions or more negative emotions? Are you grumpy on the inside more than you're positive? I know that's a problem for a lot of us, for real. Straightforwardness, being direct. Oh, so many people struggle with this. And it's not just the bariatric population, this is the population at large. I think a lot of people struggle to be healthy adults when it comes to being straightforward. We want to people please. We want to avoid conflict, which means we're not going to say it like it is. If you listen to me very long, you know I don't struggle with that. In fact, sometimes I need to pull back the other way just a little bit and be more mindful of not being too straightforward. So, are you able to say what you think and how you feel, even if it's going to cause a little bit of discomfort? That's a good sign of psychological health. All right. Competence, believing you can do something, not just in your head, but following through with it. I'm competent, I'm capable, I say what I'm going to do, and I follow through. Another struggle, right? Psychologically healthy individuals have a sense of altruism. In other words, I care about me and I care about other people. I'm going to take care of myself and I'm going to help take care of other people. It's not just about me and it's not just about other people. I matter, others matter. Psychologically healthy adults maintain a level of activity, a healthy level of activity, physical, educational. You keep your brain active, you keep your body active. Where do you stand on that? Openness to values, meaning you're open to your opinions, obviously, but you're also open to other people's opinions, even if they don't match yours. And you can answer this for yourself by saying, how tolerant are you of other people's political and religious ideas? Dun, dun, dun. So that should give you an idea as to how open you are to people's values. So those are just a few of them. There are a whole long list. I'll give you a few on the bottom end, which is people who are not so psychologically healthy. Hostility, being hostile, having an attitude of hostility. And a lot of times when we have a victim mentality, or why me, or why is this happening to me, and why does everybody else get to eat what they want? I don't have to. And why do I have to exercise? And they don't seem to ever have to exercise. And you're hostile because people aren't struggling with what you are. Real low sign of psychological health, not very psychologically healthy. A lot of depression that is manifested by a continued focus on how depressed you are, as opposed to having depression but working on it. Um, Not being willing to be very vulnerable. In other words, not being willing to share your thoughts, your feelings, your truth, who you are. Tremendous amount of anxiety that you're not willing to deal with, but you hide behind. A lot of impulsiveness that you're, again, not trying to work on. Super self conscious, like super self conscious, not signs of psychological strength. So, I will go more into detail about what a psychologically healthy person looks like when we talk on Thursday. But this is um, a good opening to helping you look at where you are in terms of your own psychological strength, your own psychological stability, and remembering that people who are better able at maintaining I'm looking for something here, maintaining their weight loss do have that overall psychological strength and stability. I'm going to see if I can find real quick. Okay, here's that list. I'll review it for you. The topics we've been discussing in recent weeks. So, those people who our researchers have shown to have are good predictors for successful weight maintenance. We talked about internal motivation, doing it for yourself because you like feeling healthy. Having good solid social support, developing positive coping skills, having the ability to handle life stress without emotional eating or turning to food or other unhealthy behaviors. Self efficacy, meaning I believe I can, I believe I can, I think I will, I think I can, I know I could. Autonomy, assuming responsibility in life, and overall psychological strength and stability. So that's where we're at today. And Thursday, we'll wrap up our series on that. And if you're not a part of the Bariatric Care program and you're missing out on half of these talks, I encourage you to go to www.bariatriccare.com and join the community. And we will finish up this topic about psychological strength and better define what a psychologically healthy adult looks like on Thursday. In the meantime, y'all, remember as I finish all of our talks, your health is your responsibility this day and every single day. Thank you so much for joining me. Please encourage your friends to listen to these podcasts. They're absolutely free and we all have issues to deal with. So even if it's not specifically related to weight loss surgery, you can apply this to other areas of your life. Thanks for joining me. Make it a great one, and I will see you next time.